Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a very focused look at the astrological events tied to the month of February 2024. Again, pay attention to how I said that. Focus, because there's going to be a lot of mental energy as we go through the month of February, and there's going to be a lot of things that are very much grabbing our attention, grabbing our focus, and being a part of the long conversations at hand. Before we go too deep into the transits, I want to go ahead and tell everybody my monthly special for the month of February. I'm going to do something that sounds super, super cliche, but as I explain it, it will be very clear to you guys. It's not as cliche as you think. And that is for the month of February, if we do one-on-one sessions for Synastry readings, those are on special. Dusty, Synastry, what? Valentine's, what? You mean it's cliche? This is what I was talking about. No, it's not like that. Everybody knows that you can get a synastry reading to see if two people are compatible. Like, oh yes, our Venuses are in such a great place and we're going to be super romantic and good for you, babies. That's not what I'm talking about now. There are more things that a synastry reading can be used for that not a lot of people take advantage of synastry readings for. So if you are going into a business, starting something new in your professional life, and you're trying to launch something in a business and you're relying on another person to help you in some way, understanding that some of us are going into a new 20-year cycle based off of Pluto, but some of us are in the midst of like only doing something for the next 2 to 3 years based off Saturn. You don't necessarily always know what activation planets are activating you and your business partner. Doing a synastry reading with a business partner, I'm going to mess up the word synastry. I already know it. I'm going to goof it up at some point. Getting a synastry reading, it can tell you, one, missed strengths between the two of you, who would be better in certain areas of the business. Two, later on when we could have potential hiccups. If we have a prolonged interest that we're trying to do something with somebody for the next 15 to 20 years, but their energy isn't going to be available for that long, it's better to know that ahead of time. You can do a lot in business based off having a synastry reading with the people that you are trying to do business with. Another thing that you can do with a synastry reading is you can look for generational curses and generational trauma. Most people don't think of it that way. You have all the information for a parent's chart, a grandparent's chart, and a child's chart. You can look for the compatibility, you can look for the synastry, and you can look for the repeat patterns. You can see if something that has gone on in grandma and grandpa's life and in your life, but then you see the difference in your child's life, you can see that we can finally turn something and break something. And depending on how far back we go, the more we can learn in regards to changing generational healing. You can learn a lot through a synastry reading by doing that. Other things that you can do in a synastry reading is learning better ways to parent your child. If your fear is that you are going to potentially push them in the wrong direction, or you're not feeding into their strengths, or you're not able to help them succeed from a young age, we can overcome that in a synastry reading. If you're fearful that your relationship or the dissolution of your marriage is going to impact your child, we can actually sit down and take a look at all of these transits that are going on against your chart and look at it from one perspective, but then we can also look at it from your child's chart to get the other perspective. You can do a lot in a synastry reading. Now, when it does come to relationships, a lot of people don't necessarily realize when they're in a karmic contract. And I do this a lot. I tell people when they have a past life connection, what that past life connection was. Was it a good one? Is it a bad one? Is this something that this person that you're vibing with, like, is this a repeat pattern? Do you always run back into this person in some way? We can see that in synastry readings. So if you were wanting to do a one-on-one session with me, the one-on-one sessions are $35. If you were wanting to do a generational session with me, That's going to take longer than an hour. So I would put it closer to like 90 minutes. And those are going to be $55. And I'll have some little JPEG things on Facebook for those specials. So again, Synastry readings for more than just if we are going to be boyfriend and girlfriend is my special for the month of February. So I'm doing the bigger spiel at the beginning of this one, and then I'll do kind of reminders through each of the weekly ones as we go through the month of February, just like I normally do. Okay, let's get straight into it. Now, when it comes to the month of February, this is the shortest month of the year, but given how some of these transits are going to go and how many are so continuous and long, some of us are not going to feel like it's the shortest month of the year. Some of us are going to feel like some of the shit's going on forever. And it's kind of hard to understand why if you don't necessarily know exactly what's going on. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at the prolonged transits that are occurring as we go through the first part of this episode. And then when we get to the last half, I will actually go over the dates and we'll pull the chart up. So first things first, there's one particular transit that's already been going on. It started in January. I didn't put a whole lot of heavy emphasis in it. I said that in one or two podcasts that I'm not putting a whole lot of heavy emphasis into this transit yet because I don't feel like it's going to be recognizably important until now, until February and March specifically. And that is Saturn's long-term sextile to Jupiter. And the reason I feel like it's different in February is because in February, Jupiter is going to leave shadow while all of this shit has been going on in Saturn signs. In other words, while we've been going through Saturn's shadow period, we were finally wrapping up some final things that should have been taken care of through the purging timeline. Now, there are reasons why some of those finally came up now. And as we get into one of those other transits here in a minute, I will explain that more because it's going to feed into some more of what we're going to be dealing with in February. Now, Saturn and Jupiter, they will not hit an exact sextile. Their exact sextile happened last year. It happened in late May going into June. And specifically, it happened right as Jupiter was entering shadow and Saturn was turning retrograde. So again, in many, many ways, we felt something lining up. We felt something that was coming so close. We felt like we were about to manifest something and we were really getting something onto a whole new track. But in some way, shape, or form, it was not the right time. I'm going to repeat some things that I have been saying for a while. The things that we were trying to do last year, we were doing it with the wrong people in the wrong place. We were looking at the wrong things. We were focused in the wrong direction. We were doing it in the wrong timeline. We weren't ready. Energetically, something was not in alignment. We weren't in the right place on the chessboard. Now it's a little different. Now is a little different. As we go through the middle part of February, Saturn is going to leave shadow. And there will be a very big dynamic that will start to really play out from Saturn leaving shadow all the way until the end of the month. And many of us will end this month in some level of revelation and some whole new level of mental clarity based off of the way the transits are going to go. Saturn rules time, law, rules, karma, boundaries, responsibility, elders, authority figures. There are certain responsibilities that we no longer wish to have. That was revealed to us recently. There are certain focuses that we have wanted to change direction in. That was revealed to others recently. Some of us were doing the revealing. And whenever it comes to the word revealing, this is going to take me into our next transit. I'm going to remind everybody this is something that happened in January. Between the 19th, the 20th, and the 21st of January, we had the Sun-Pluto conjunction. And there was something that was meant to come to light, meant to be seen, meant to be revealed in that timeline, in that Sun-Pluto conjunction. And we are still very, very much in this revelation energy as we go into February. But I want people to be very, very aware of what was going on during the Sun-Pluto conjunction. What came to light? What was revealed? What secret, what fear was confirmed? What element of personal power came back through? Because whether that Sun-Pluto conjunction was a positive energy or it was a negative energy, it was different for everybody. Some of us, we were able to show how much we have changed. We were able to debut this transformation, this whole new form of personal power. And as soon as this form of personal power was recognized, everybody knew about it. And more people are becoming more aware, more enthused, more connected with that change. But for some of us, it was not personal power. Secrets, fears, lies, fraud, deception, abuse, or trauma was revealed. Deep-seated wounds came to light. And if you fall into this category, I'm sorry for what I'm about to warn you about. But at least you're being warned. Because we now need to talk about what else is going to happen to Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And one of these is how we start the month of February, because we will have 3 planets conjunct Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius, 3 of them. The first one is Mercury, and this is literally part of how we start the month. Between the 4th and the 5th, it's late on the 4th that Mercury is going to go into Aquarius. It's exact on the 5th where we have the the Mercury-Pluto conjunction. Whatever came to light has another layer. There's more to the story. There's the next round of information. Some of you have been dealing with whatever got revealed before behind the scenes, and we haven't told everybody yet that we're getting divorced, that we've hooked back up with our ex. Sometimes it's both. That we're making some type of change, that we've been struggling with our finances, that we've been struggling with something behind the scenes. We haven't put all of that out there for people to know. And when Mercury hits its conjunction to Pluto, there will be the next round of information tied to the previous revelation. There will be an announcement tied to the previous revelation. There will be strategies, there will be planning, there will be meetings, there will be communication, there will be information, there will be something next tied to the previously revealed moment. Now, this is happening at 0 degrees. So whatever it is, before that Pluto-Sun conjunction started at 29, but that moved to 0 degrees of Aquarius, so it was bigger. Mercury will be the start of whatever comes next, communicating the plan of how we continue, communicating where those changes are going to happen, communicating the next part of the transformation, of the change, of the struggle, if it's struggle. The next round, the next layer to whatever is going on is how we start the month of February. And that's going to happen with the Mercury-Pluto conjunction. The next conjunction to Pluto, I'm warning everybody now, everybody right now, if you've had individual readings, I've already told you. If you've done any of my lives, I've already told you this. Do not make Valentine's plans. Don't set up people for failure. This is not a good year for that. Notice how I said don't set up people for failure? Let's talk about February 13th and 14th. February 13th, Mars enters Aquarius and immediately starts that conjunction to Pluto at 0 degrees. It will go exact in the overnight hours of the 13th going into the 14th. Valentine's Day. Let's not make plans, okay? Not on Valentine's Day. Make them the weekend before, make them the weekend after. I like those. I don't like the middle of the week. Now, whatever gets communicated in the Mercury-Pluto conjunction, whatever is communicated, whatever is being planned, whatever is getting worked through, whatever is going on informationally, because there's some level of information tied to that energy, is going to then have some level of additional disruption, because it's Mars, chaos, fighting, an accident, action, a reaction. Now let's talk about the idea of actions, because not every Mars-Pluto conjunction has to be the worst thing in the world. Not all of them. But in this regard, the Mars-Pluto conjunction, again, being at 0 degrees, can be the start of a new action. It can be disruptive energy regarding a power dynamic. And there are layers to Mars and Pluto that are not easily seen and not easily recognizable. Why do I say that? Because whenever it comes to Mars and Pluto, these are the rulers of Scorpio. We just had a Mars rebirth in the sign of Scorpio. There can be elements that go back to that Mars rebirth, especially if you are a Scorpio rising or you have dominant Scorpio placements. If you have Mars Pluto in your birth chart, this can also be something that you feel very, very deeply. But I also want to bring up the fact that whatever happens in this Mars Pluto will have layers that come back around at the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025 during the Mars retrograde, because we end this year in a Mars retrograde. Enjoy the spring while we have it, guys. Enjoy the spring while we have it. I know it's not quite spring yet, but we're getting there. We're getting close. At the end of this year, when Mars goes retrograde, there will be 3 oppositions to Pluto. There are far more layers to the 13th and 14th date than we can see at the moment that it is occurring. For some of us, it will be a pivotal action, still going to have some level of disruption if we're kicking somebody out, if we're getting kicked out. There's some action there. There can be some additional layers in regards to like the actions that you're taking in, transforming something. Think of like renovating an area around the house. That's actually a positive way for Mars and Pluto. But if you're fighting with somebody, you could also have an unintended renovation if somebody decides they're going to poke holes in the drywall. So be aware of those actions and those disruptions. The third conjunction to Pluto at 0 degrees is going to be Venus. And this happens just a few days after the Mars-Pluto conjunction, and it also starts a prolonged energy between Venus and Mars. And that's going to start on the 16th. Venus is going to go into Aquarius, and over those 24 hours of being there, so somewhere between, depending on your time zone, February 16th and February 17th, Venus is going to conjoin Pluto. And for a lot of people, I feel like Venus is the result. Venus is the feedback. Venus is the correction. Venus is the solution to whatever just occurred because it happened so quickly. The other reason I'm saying that Venus feels like a solution is because what's going to continue. Now, if you are going through Venus activations, you might not feel like that Venus-Pluto conjunction is a solution. You might not. And I want to be perfectly clear about that. That one right there can be like the final nail in the coffin that leads to the next 2 weeks of disruptive energy, depending on how Venus and Mars plays out. Because from the 16th of February all through the rest of the month, Venus and Mars are going to be in a conjunction. And I think that's very, very telling because the last time Venus and Mars had a conjunction was in Aquarius. And that happened in early 2022. They started in Capricorn. They went into Aquarius together, and they didn't stop until they hit the conjunctions to Saturn. But what I also think back to in early 2022 is that's also when the nodes first went into the Venus Mars ruled signs. That's right. January 2022, the North Node went into Venus's sign and the South Node went into Mars's sign. That's how we started that nodal axis. It was like a 6 to 7 week conjunction of Venus and Mars. Again, Venus had just entered a retrograde in Capricorn. They spent over 6 weeks moving together. And that started that nodal energy and gave us an idea of some of the things that needed to come together and be seen. This time around, we're not at the start of a nodal energy, but we are about to go into the one and only eclipse timeline where both Venus and Mars eclipses are going to occur. That happens in late March and that happens in April. The last time Venus and Mars had a conjunction, it was in Aquarius. They're coming back together in an area where they separated 2 years ago. And for the last 2 weeks of February, there will be connection. There will be things coming back together. There are things that are going to be met. There are actions that are going to be taken, but the dynamics are different this time because the South Node is in Venus's sign. So the actions that are being taken are going to make certain Venusian things fall away. There's going to be disruptions to people that are going through issues with love. There are going to be disruptions for people that are doing things in regards to art and music. There will be disruptions for people that are having issues with their lungs or their kidneys or their thyroid. Because this time the South Node is in Venus's sign. She's not in the lead. She'll go into the lead in regards to she'll surpass Mars, but she's not in the lead in regards to how these energies will progress. And will become far more aware again of some of the things that need to be cut out, cut off, and lost. And many of the actions that are being taken with Mars are going to be focused, notice that word again, determined, and very pronounced in many, many ways. We will see this in a multitude of levels in regards to relationships, in regards to politics, in regards to our professional career, in regards to whatever we're dealing with within our family. We will see these changes through the last 2 weeks of February. And there will be a lot of noise. There's a lot of prolonged energy that will occur. So let's get into the month of February. Let's get into the dates. So we're starting this off on February 4th because we're going to stick to the major transits. You know me, if you want to know what the weekly energy is going to be, or like if one day is going to be better than the other with a continuous flow, that's what the weeklies are for. This is going to be the major transits. So first things first, at 11:11 p.m. Central Standard Time, Mercury enters Aquarius. Going into the overnight hours and going into the 5th, Mercury will make its exact conjunction to Pluto. Now, this is happening over the course of a Monday, Tuesday time span. Some of us are going to be revealing some things over the weekend, letting somebody know that something is coming to a close. And some of us are going to get into the week, letting people know of something that is starting, how we're going to be changing something moving forward, positive or negative. We are talking about what has coming to a close some actions to close some things out in the near future, while also dealing with how we start from here, where we go next from here. Mercury, Pluto. Okay. Now, when we get to the next few days, I want to go between the 7th and the 12th. I feel like for a lot of people, what starts to come through after the Mercury Pluto conjunction is going to lead into a very continuous flow of energy. So when we get to the 7th, Venus is going to trine Uranus. While Venus is entering her trine, because this is not exact at 8 a.m. on the 7th, the sun is entering a square to Uranus. And this sun square to Uranus, we will feel for a couple of days. And for a lot of people, there's going to be some level of support, Venus trine Uranus. It's time to support something. It's time to see something change. It's very much about being blessed or feeling considered. There's something very hopeful with Venus's energy, but with the sun, there's a level of change, and there's a level of ego, and there's a level of action, and there's a level of push. But it's a good push because we have Venus's energy in here too. And I like Venus and Capricorn personally. Not only that, we're going to have the moon hit a conjunction to Venus while they're going through that trine with Uranus. So that's even more helpful support. There will be some very unexpected energy. We'll have some shocking things, some things that we weren't anticipating that are going to come through between the 7th and the 12th. So just be aware, like, there's a lot of Uranian energy with Uranus's tie into here. So we can have some very unexpected changes that come through. Again, Venus and the sun, the Venus trine, the sun square will go exact on the 8th. You see that right here. Here's the sun, 19 degrees, 18 minutes. Here's Uranus, 19 degrees, 9 minutes. Venus is still in her trine, but she's moving far faster. We have this energy of knowing where we need to make a change, being told, I support you in the changes that you're doing. We can do good things together. We can push something to happen in a certain way. And then the sun square will speak to something that really gets pushed into a new beginning. Why do I say it that way? Because the new moon that's going to happen in a square to that Uranus. So we're getting into February 9th. This new moon is perfecting at 20 degrees. It's still in that square. Is it exact? No. But again, I feel like there's a couple things that's going on that's going to have a continuous flow of energy that we're going to feel all the way through. Now, the other thing that is starting to appear right here, that is not exact, which is another reason why I'm still saying this feels like a continuous flow of energy. Mercury is entering its square to Jupiter. And this is not exact on the 9th. It's actually exact on the 10th. Here's, at this point in the afternoon, we're just past it. So let me back this up a few hours. I like to keep you somewhat in the know of like exact. Okay. So February 10th, this is 10:15 a.m. Here's Mercury, 8 degrees, 34 minutes. Here's Jupiter, 8 degrees, 24 minutes. A hopeful decision. A logical amount of communication. Talking to the guru, talking to the doctor, talking to somebody that can educate you in the moment, somebody that can help you regain hope, somebody that speaks to your faith. We need a logical connection to faith. This is right after the new moon, and that's going to happen the same timeline while the moon in Pisces is going to make this conjunction to Saturn. This is going to happen later in the day. So some of the communication, this hopeful communication, can also speak to emotional responsibilities, emotional considerations, changes in responsibility, and the emotions that they evoke in us. There's something that is here that is being very spoken, and it can be hopeful and it can be helpful, but at the same time, there's an element of responsibility, rules, boundaries, karma, and how we move forward from here. This is all happening in conjunction with that new moon. So again, I feel like this is a continuous flow of energy. And we have this Mercury Jupiter square where it goes exact on the 10th, but we're going to feel it all the way to the 12th. That's why I said the 12th. But what I also want to bring up is whenever we go through this Mercury Jupiter square, this is when Saturn leaves shadow. Saturn leaving shadow. Mercury is in Saturn sign. Jupiter is the ruler Pisces where Saturn is. So again, there's some type of hopeful communication. And for what a lot of people, whatever starts to come through after the Mercury Jupiter square, in a lot of ways is going to make us aware of new responsibilities, new rules, new laws, new things tied to Saturn. So this Mercury Jupiter square, it's got layers to it. Got a lot of layers to it. Okay. We can also be very aware through those few days of something that is going to come to a close. And then we're going to get to the 13th. Oh, the 13th. Oh, yeah. And what's going on here? Mars enters Aquarius and starts its conjunction with Pluto. I've already warned you about this one. Let's not make Valentine's Day plans, guys. Don't set up anybody for failure, okay? We don't want to do that. So we've got the Pluto-Mars conjunction. I already warned about this. I talked about this in the beginning. I do feel like there are actions that are going to happen here, very martial actions. So, cutting off. There can be things tied to power struggles, actions tied to people that have been abusing power. Calling somebody out on their abuses of power can be a very big element here. But considering Mars and Pluto are hitting their conjunction again at 0 degrees in this entire timeline, the moon is in Aries. I would be very aware of what Mars rules in your chart. Remember, I read from a whole house system. So what does Aries and Scorpio rule in your chart? Is this your first and your sixth? Is this your 12th and your 7th? Is this your 3rd and your 8th? Like, this can have to do about a couple of different things, but I really feel like this speaks to something that can be a part of eclipse season, again, because the moon is literally making a conjunction to the North Node. We're getting certain things now that are pushing more into alignment, that it's surpassing certain elements from before of what couldn't be put into alignment before. So be very, very aware of especially what Aries rules in your chart, what house this is, because I feel like that really can kind of speak to whatever is coming through with this Mars Pluto. But I still also say Scorpio because we had that Mars rebirth in Scorpio. What does Mars rule in your chart? Because that's going to speak volumes to this day. These 2 days. Okay. Moving us along. On the 16th is really, really busy. So we're going to get to the 16th and we're going to see a couple of different things once I get this moved to the right spot. Okay. February 16th at 11:15 a.m. This is right after Venus enters Aquarius. Venus, of course, starts that conjunction to Pluto, but she is also now within the 3-degree range of Mars. So we start this prolonged energy of what's going to take course throughout the rest of the month between Venus and Mars. It's starting here. It's not exact until the 22nd, but it's starting. So again, whatever disruptions just occurred, Venus hits that conjunction of Pluto and the moon's in Venus' sign. Can't even make that up. Once the moon changes signs later in the day and goes into Gemini, Mercury is also entering its square to Uranus. So there's volumes and layers to what's coming through. So there's a lot of things about the 16th and the 17th that are very, very important. One, when Venus enters Aquarius, we start mutual reception with Uranus. Simultaneously, upon the mutual reception starting, Mercury, the ruler of our logical brain, and the focus that we've had all month, where all of the mental energy has been, where everything has been working through in the communication in regards to the planning and everything else, Mercury will make its square to Uranus. There is an action, there is excitement, there is some type of news, there is some type of breakthrough in communication that helps us overcome a fear, that helps us overcome the trauma, that really makes it a lot easier to make steps forward. Sorry, guys. Ooh. And the other thing that is occurring is the first quarter moon. And that's actually just a few hours before this timeline. So I want to show you that too. Right as Venus is entering Aquarius, we go through the quarter moon. So this is 9:15 a.m. Here's the sun, 27 degrees, 26 minutes. Here's the moon, 27 degrees, 33 minutes. We have quarter moons. The first quarter moons usually instigate some type of buildup. They instigate a level of energy that starts to pick up because we're starting to move towards a full moon. There is an energy here that speaks to building something up. Right after the quarter moon perfects, Venus goes into Aquarius. Mercury starts its square with Uranus. It's starting to go exact over this 24-hour period. The Venus-Pluto conjunction actually goes exact the next morning on the 17th. So for me, it's at 2:30 a.m. Central Standard Time on the 17th. So these few days have a lot of energy tied to them. We're going to definitely be feeling the energy of the 16th and the 17th. And this is, again, a weekend. So we're going to be very, very busy with dealing with things around the house, busy with dealing with things in regards to our family, busy with trying to find a solution, busy with trying to get our heads wrapped around something and thinking outside of the box and putting something different into play. Not busy in the negative sense. So I don't feel like this is busy in the negative sense, but I do feel like we get some level of clarity about where we're about to make a change. And that change is going to be something that starts to spell through as we get closer to that full moon in Virgo. Okay. Here's the 17th. Closer to that Venus-Pluto conjunction. Again, Venus and Mars, they're going to be starting their thing all throughout the rest of the month. So that's going on. And then we get to the 19th, and the sun is going to enter Pisces. Now, the sun is actually very, very happy in Pisces after just spending 2 months in Saturn-ruled signs, because the sun does not do well in Saturn's sign. The sun starts to do better once we get into Pisces season. We can start to feel certain amounts of hope coming back around, our personal strength coming back around. We can start to feel, once we get deeper into the Pisces transits, that we're not stuck in something. Yes, we know something for the long term has come about, but we're not stuck and fixated. We're able to move certain things and knowing that wherever our changes are, that they're going to be for long-term energy, for the long term. Changes have been necessary. The sun goes into Pisces. Now on the 22nd, that is when Venus and Mars hit their exact conjunction. And that's right here at the 7-degree mark. Venus has actually just surpassed Mars over the course of this 24-hour period. So this happens in the overnight hours, so closer to the midnight range whenever it comes to this area. Well, between midnight and 6 a.m., I should say it that way, whenever this goes exact. Again, there's something that's coming together, something that we're trying to put in motion. We are in the process of taking actions forward while also understanding that there is some level of long-term elimination, regretfully based off of the fact that Venus has the South Node going through Libra. But this is also taking actions in how we restore certain amounts of hope. And that's going to speak through as these next few Venus-Mars transits occur with their squares to Jupiter and Uranus. Now, some of these will not all happen in February. So I'm saying that letting you know that some of the elements of that we won't necessarily see this month. Okay. On the 23rd, Mercury enters Pisces. Possum memes too. You're going to see the possum memes again. For those that don't know, Mercury doesn't do well in the Jupiter ruled signs. I always see like Mercury and Pisces as like screaming possums. It's me. It's a weird thing. I know, but it's like as soon as something goes wrong, it's like ah, eek, ah, very very cartoonish. There's something about Mercury and Pisces that very much screams cartoonish to me. We will be starting to make decisions once Mercury goes into Pisces that are more based off of our emotions than our logic. And that can have repercussions once we get into March and especially April. So I'm making people aware of that now. Our minds can kind of slow down. We can get into timelines of just melancholy, of not thinking clearly, of getting stuck in our emotions, feeling a little hopeless at different times based off of like how we can respond to certain things. But lucky for us, Mercury going through Pisces is going to be very, very quick. I'm saying lucky. There's some sarcasm to when I say it that way. Anyways, going to the next day. On the 24th, we get the full moon in Virgo, the full moon in Mercury sign. And what did Mercury just do? It just went into its detriment. That makes this very difficult. Now, there can be some very emotional decisions again. And many of us are going to realize that we need to change something. And I feel like with this full moon in Virgo, especially in the days after it, as we continue through the rest of February, there will be a lot of mental adjustments, mental changes based off of our emotions or lack thereof with some people. Certain responsibilities are transitioning, certain roles within our families are transitioning, certain dynamics and dialogues will transition. And whenever it comes to the last bit of February, I do feel like the 23rd all the way to the 29th is another one of those times that we're in a continuous flow of energy, that there's so many transits that hit back to back to back to back, that for a lot of people, it's going to be the majority of the transits will either like be multiple rounds in one specific area, or it's going to be a mix of multiple hits to one thing while also still going through other things in the meantime. And again, you're just kind of ready to pull your hair out. Rapid energy, there's a lot of things going on. So let's talk about some of those first ones. Again, Mercury entered Pisces on the 23rd. We have this full moon in Virgo. And during this full moon in Virgo, Venus, who again is in mutual reception to Uranus, Venus will square Jupiter. Now, this is actually going to go exact a little bit later in the day. You start to see that right here. Venus is still in the conjunction to Mars. So this is a boastful, helpful, healing energy of how we continue something forward. Who's going to be responsible for what? Who's going to be dealing with what? And this can be very, very helpful energy. This can be very recognizing energy. And there can be something that is spoken about that will have immediate action that follows. So I do feel like in this full moon in Virgo, there's going to be a lot of people that do truly deal with a completion, or we start to transition in the energies that will lead to completion. We start moving certain things again. This is not going to be the same things we were moving as before. We're shifting our focus into something else that will also be a part of a completion, or a part of a level up, depending on how we're wanting to look at that. And that's going to be stuff that goes into March. So 24th, 25th, Venus squared Jupiter, got that full moon in Virgo. And then between the 25th all the way to March 3rd, we're going to have a very focused, responsible, We need to get something handled. We need to get something accomplished. We need to get something recognized energy. And that's because the sun is going to start its conjunction to Saturn. And I think it's very telling that we have this Sun-Saturn conjunction in Jupiter's sign while we're going through these squares from Saturn's sign to Jupiter. There will be areas of life that get revealed. There will be something that comes to light, something that gets announced, something that happens. There is going to be some type of action that occurs that requires us to focus on some level of responsibility, something tied to the authority figures, something tied to getting something handled or completed or overcome. We need this level of recognition. And the reason I say this action energy is because we get to the 26th and Mars is in that square to Jupiter. And that goes the most exact between the 26th and the 28th. We'll actually feel this one for a few days. This is going to go into that Sun conjunction to Saturn. So again, the actions, these hopeful actions, these restorative actions, these things that we're pushing to go through also means recognizing a role, recognizing the responsibility, having clarity about how something is going to continue, having clarity about what we're doing next, who we are next. The biggest day of clarity is going to come through between the 26th, I'm sorry, not the 20th, the 27th, the 28th, and the 29th, most exact on the 28th. Why? Because of this Mercury conjunction to Saturn, conjunction to the sun, we get a Mercury cazimi conjunct Saturn. Again, parts of this is going to happen on the 27th, part of this is going to happen on the 28th. Mercury cazimis are whenever Mercury is coming into the heart of the sun, and we tend to have some level of clarity or an epiphany or bright ideas, or we have some type of information that is revealed. This is Saturn no longer in shadow, and we've just had all of these shifts going through Saturn signs. There is something that is coming to light, being understood, an emotional responsibility that is being recognized. There is a shift in authority, a shift in the elders, a shift of who is going to be in charge of what. And again, this is going on while Mars is in the square to Jupiter. There's a lot of action, and there's a lot of reactions, and there's a lot of pushing. And this can be a very intense day for a lot of people, depending on what you have going on in your personal life. We're still going to be riding some of the energies tied to the full moon in Virgo. Again, I said like going from the 23rd to the 29th, I feel like that a lot of this is a very continuous set of energy. And this Sun-Mars conjunction, this is going to be felt all the way into the first few days of March. So understand the amount of clarity, understand that things can be revealed around an authority figure, by an authority figure, verdicts. We can have something tied to doctors. If we have something like a scan or some type of like surgery type thing going on, they can find more than what was expected once this occurs. There's so many layers and depths tied to this, and considering the moon will make a conjunction to the south node in this 24-hour span from where we're at right here, there can be things tied to the body. So again, people's health, the health of an elder. There can be things that are felt in the Venus-Jupiter square that requires an emergency of some sort, an emergency action or reaction. And that comes through very quickly with the Mars-Jupiter square. For some of us, we come to some type of resolution in the Venus-Jupiter square that Mars-Jupiter it's the action of how we continue and how we move out. And again, whatever this energy here is, has some element of release and purge for the long term. The Mercury cazimi in this conjunction to Saturn is a lot of mental and emotional energy. There's something about wanting to understand what's been going on below the surface, wanting to understand the depths of where somebody has brought something out. There's a lot of energy tied to emotions and things that will lead to healing later on. I don't feel like we're getting healing in this moment. I really don't, given all the way all of the other transits are going for throughout the rest of the month. I feel like we end the month of February very, very clear on something. Clear on the new rules, clear on a trajectory, clear on a dialogue, clear on a plan, released from something or someone. Some of us, that Mercury Cazimi will be a recognition. The sun's conjunction to Saturn can recognize a new form of power. Bosses can promote people, new department heads, new positions, new responsibilities that have more to them than just what we're seeing in the moment. And again, hopeful action can still be a part of the process. And whatever we can be starting as we go into those last few weeks of February, we might only be emotionally unclear or mentally unclear about what's going on for a short while. And then our mental energy will change as we get into the middle parts of March. There's a very curious dynamic to the way February is going to end. And again, with as many prolonged energies that go on continuously, for some people, February is going to feel like the longest month of the year. For other people, it's going to feel like it's a blink of the eye because so much rapid change starts to set in. So much new reality. And some of us are going to have to take some time to emotionally process that new reality. And that can be a big portion of what happens once we get into these Pisces transits, especially Mercury in Pisces. But I'm going to tell you guys something that my best friend from whenever I was younger told me. You can only be sad for so long. And then you got to get out of your funk. And if you're sad about one situation, if you're sad about a prognosis, if you're sad, I'm using the word sad, or depressed or something along these lines about a new energy that is a part of what's going on, I'm telling you, you're only going to be sad for so long. And then it's either going to be a time of action going into March, reactions, arguing. March, the later parts of March and going into April, there's going to be a lot of arguing and combativeness. The mental energy will shift very, very soon, but sometimes we do have to go through a moment of just shedding the emotion. And Mercury in Pisces, not so much Pisces season, it's Mercury in Pisces. Mercury in Pisces, we will only be shedding those emotions for so long. We will only be stuck in our feelings for so long. And then once Mercury goes into Aries, and this is going to happen very, very quickly in March, the Mercury in Pisces timeline is very short this time. It's going to very much change our mental energy for over 2 months. So you only get to be sad for a moment. You're only going to be stuck in the melancholy, or if you're coming together in a positive way, you're only going to be in the honeymoon stage of like the romance for so long. And then the mental energy is going to change. And then there's going to be a whole lot of a different dynamic. So right now, as we go through February, there's going to be certain amounts of energy of just understanding what's starting to set in and the layers to it. And there will be little bits of these layers that's going to have some push and shove. It's going to have some tests and questioning. We're going to be forced to take actions, even though we're not actually ready to take certain actions, or people are going to say certain things to instigate that you take actions that you're not actually ready for. And that's why I feel like, again, once Mercury goes into Pisces, it's going to be about processing some emotions from all of the recent changes, but you're only going to be sad for so long. And then you're going to have a weirdo friend that's going to like show up and pull you out of the funk and make you do things. Because when we start to get it more into February, wholeheartedly in April and parts of May, there's going to be a lot more action and a lot more reactions and a lot more combativeness. You're only going to feel sad for so long. You're only going to be able to do the reflection timeline for so long. And then the game is going to change. So understand the focus and understand the information and understand the curious things that are starting to come through in the month of February. That either, again, this is going to feel like the longest month of the year because every single transit seems to be going on for a much longer period of time, especially whenever it comes to Mercury, Mars, and their conjunction. All of those hits to Pluto. Some of us are going to feel like we're going through the longest month, but for others, we're going to feel like this is a blink of the eye. And the next thing you know, we're going to be in eclipse season. But our focus is changing. The news, the information, the direction, it's changing. We've already been seeing the change, but now it's going to solidify more, and now it's going to set in more. And again, more people are going to be aware of these changes as we go through February. Some of it's going to be gossip. Some of it's going to be like the rolling out of the next form of plans. Some of it is going to be, more things tied to those traumatic events that we've already went through, the triggers of fear and the deep-seated wounds that were reinstigated in January. We needed to break out of the funk. And we're going to be able to handle a lot more things by the end of February compared to the beginning of February. Our tenacity, our strength will be able to build if you choose to let it build. Some people, whenever you have too many raw, testy like things happen, we get stuck in a funk. We choose to get stuck in a funk. For a lot of people, it is a matter of choice. If you choose to stay stuck and rigid and take things the wrong way, then this is going to, again, be a very long and difficult month for you. If you accept the change for the long term and you accept that we are transitioning, because we are actually in a whole timeline of a 2 years worth of transition. Pluto just went into Aquarius, but we're wrapping up Neptune and Uranus going through Pisces and Taurus. Those two energies will wrap up and move into something new. And that's going to take a full 2 years. So I'm telling you, we're in a 2-year timeline of transitions, of endings and beginnings and endings and beginnings. And it's going to be a continuous flow of how a lot of these readings are going to continue. We're setting in on the new form of continuous in one way, but there will be other areas that will transition and end later on. This is one part of the dynamic. So I hope it goes well. I hope it goes well for everybody. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for the subscriptions. Thank you for everybody that keeps tuning into the Facebook Lives. Like I said, I'm going to start doing more on TikTok. That's kind of the plan for this next month. January got super, super busy, guys. If you want to take advantage of the Synastry readings, then definitely DM me or you contact me. All of my contact information is in the descriptions of each episode. But I love and appreciate every single one of you, and I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.